Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to week 3. Hooray. Why doesn't everybody unmute themselves, if you will, and let's just do a quick check-in. We've got a few people that are not on camera, so hopefully everybody will turn their camera on tonight as we meet our guest speaker. Let me see if I can let a few more people in. So let's just give another minute. Let's see. Who do we have? Who are we missing? If you will look at your, on the right-hand side, if you click participants and find yourself and see if your full name is there. If it's not, can you click on the little dots and rename yourself so I can see all of your names, and our guest speaker should be able to see your name as well. So if it says iPhone or anything other than your name, and I'm going to rename our guest speaker as Greg. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. Perfect. So just one more minute. If you have if you can click on participants, find your name and make sure that you have the correct name listed for you. We'll give it just another minute so you get credit for being here tonight.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Lydia.
How would you add your last name? It only has my first name.
Okay, so click on participants,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll see the participant screen pop up. Find yourself, and there should be 3 little dots to the right of your name, and you will click on it and select rename.
Okay.
So just one person, I'm not sure who they are. Who's iPhone guest? I'm going to ask you to unmute.
That's Vivian. She's trying to do it now.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. All right, so let's just take a minute. We have a wonderful guest speaker tonight. I'm so excited, Greg Uba, and I'm going to have him introduce himself in just a minute, but I thought it might be fun to have, so that he can get to know you a little bit, if we could just take turns having each one of you introduce yourselves to Greg, and maybe think about if you have a question that relates to, just first off, that relates to early childhood education and advocacy that you might want to ask, something that came to mind when you knew you were going to have a speaker that was going to speak on this topic tonight. If you can come up with one question you might have, that would be fabulous. So who would like to start? No brave souls?
So hi, Mr. Uba. My name is Mia Smith. I work for LAUSD as a preschool teacher.
Okay, LAUSD.
Yeah,
I got
in the
to see
early
some of your-
ed.
Okay.
Thank you, Mia.
Well,
Mia,
what
do you have
site?
a question for Greg? Any questions?
Not right now.
Okay, we'll have some for you. Thank you, Mia.
You're welcome.
David, would you go next?
He's mute.
Are you mute, David?
Am I mute? No, I'm not.
Okay, took off my screen. Do you want to go next?
Me?
Vivian, there's your name. Your name popped up. I went, oh.
Hi, Lydia.
Yeah.
Hi.
Vivian, will you introduce yourself next?
Oh, hi, I'm Vivian Beans. I also work for LAUSD, and I've been working 15 years, I think now, 16 years for LAUSD. And when I think about advocacy, I think about so many things, but one of our last paper we just did on advocacy, it talked about the idea that early education seems to be like the ugly stepsister. You know, it's always, you know, when we go to meetings, we'll go into a meeting and the pamphlets will say K through 12. It will never say pre-K through 12. We always feel like we're not included in the conversation sometimes. And, you know, I want to begin to advocate for, you know, our early education, you know, to make our profession more professionalized and really begin to look at it as a profession and not some, you know, I still think they tend to think of it as, you know, glorified babysitters, and we're not that. We're so much more than that. And so when I think of in terms of advocating, I strongly believe that that's an issue that we all struggle with when we go to meetings or when we're in other meetings with K through 12. Somehow we get left out of the loop. And I really want to start thinking about how can I advocate on behalf of the early ed to really make our voices heard.
Excellent.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Yeah. Oh,
Sure.
go ahead, Greg.
Okay. One of the things that's interesting, because I'm pretty far out there on the branch.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure that I want to be part of K-12 until they understand child development as well as we do.
Yes.
I kind of think we do it better than they do it. And part of the advocacy, I think, needs to be where we're strong enough to stand on our own and say, we don't need you to include us. We already know what we're doing, but you need to start talking to us so you can do it
Yeah,
as
the
well as we do.
conversation. It's that
I agree.
conversation piece I think lacks
Yes.
big time.
We need a conversation from a place of strength, that we actually know what we're doing better than a lot of them.
That's the truth.
Yes, they need us.
They do.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me get through everybody. And Lydia, do you want to go next? Can you unmute yourself, Lydia?
Okay. Hi, my name is Lydia Mendez, and I also work for the district, the LAUSD district. I work at 37 EEC. I'm a head teacher there, and I've been working there for, like, at that site, 7 years. But for early ed, I think about 20 years. And I love what I do. I'm passionate about my career and work with the children and families. So I just love what I do. I'm passionate about it.
Thank
Excellent.
you. Lydia.
I do have a question. What is your role at what you do? What is your role?
All right.
Right now,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Right now, actually, I'm on furlough. I was working in family childcare.
Oh, family.
So I would drive 45 minutes across town, and there's a licensed family childcare provider participating in quality program, the QRIS program for Sacramento County, and I would work there. We were tier 5. We're good.
Tier 5.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Greg. Okay, how about Jacqueline?
Hi, good evening. My name is Jackie. I'm a teacher for a Head Start program in Hollywood. So I guess my question would be like how to talk to parents, I guess now in this climate that we're in, like how to bring them more into the program and like start like a polite and formal conversation about, you know, about the racial injustice that's going on. So I think that for me would be a priority right now.
We've always had the best luck attaching it to a family event. So we've had like children art shows where we have the children art on display and the parents can come and we set out snacks and some jazz music and that brings them in, and then we have little round table conversations. It's easiest to do when you have an event.
Great idea. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Greg. Anna, how about you? Could you say hello and introduce yourself?
Ana Ulloa?
Anna Martinez. Either one, but I was looking at Anna Martinez.
Oh, hi, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was playing with the mute, and then you unmute me, and then I mute myself again. So I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay.
I'm playing with the keys. Hi, my name is Ana Martinez. I work for a state preschool near MacArthur Park area. I'm an administrator at the place, and I'm advocating for future teachers. I'm in partnership with the mentor program of the community colleges, and I have teachers that want to be students that want to become teachers come into our premises and do their student hours.
Okay.
Going there little by little because my school is a little bit small. So we're gonna trying to work together with the mentor program and help more teachers be interested in working with kids and get the experience that they need.
Small is good.
Yes.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
How about Tara? Tara, where are you? Is it Tara? Tara.
Hi, how are you today?
Say your name for me, please.
Tara.
Tara, I knew it. Tara, yes.
Hi, Mr. Uba, how are you today?
Doing all right. Good afternoon.
Good, thank you for being with us. Hi, everyone. I don't have a question at this time. I'm sure I'll probably have one at the end of the discussion.
Very well.
Tara, do you want to tell him?
Excuse me?
Do you want to tell him what area you're working in?
I'm an early education teacher
Where?
for Los Angeles, in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tara. How about you, Anna? Anna, you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Mr. Uba. My name is Ana Ulloa, and I'm currently site supervisor for the Lenox School District for the state preschools there. So I've been doing that for almost 10 years and been working with the district for a little over 12. But I guess at the moment it's not a question, it's more of like maybe you can touch upon, besides learning how to myself get more involved or into being an advocate, how to also bring colleagues along with you and convince them to not just come to work and show up, but actually like join the movement. So I guess that would be like some tips that I would need.
Sure, we can talk about that for sure.
Thank you, Anna. How about Mia?
I spoke already. I was the
You
first
did.
one.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mia. I just wanted you to speak again. Raquel.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Uba. My name is Raquel Osuna. I work for Baldwin Park Unified for their early Head Start program. But just like all these beautiful people, I've been in this field for over 20 years. And I feel that, we are all advocates, but it would be great, like Anna said, to just get some tips on, how to maybe be a little bit more intense about it. Because like Vivian said, I think, we need to be more respected in our field, and, we're not, like Vivian said, we're not half the time. So just, any expertise from you will be great.
Thank you, Raquel.
Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl, we haven't heard from you yet. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Cheryl Ritchie. I'm a teacher, preschool teacher at Esther Collins Early Education Center in LA. What else would you like to know?
Is that private, state preschool, Head Start, school district?
I'm not quite sure how they see us. I know we're not considered like a daycare. We are an early education center.
Do you do the DRDPs?
Yes, we do.
How many times a year?
We do them twice a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Uh-huh.
All right, David, let's try it again. And we have Mitzi too. David, can you unmute?
Oh, yes. Go ahead. There you go. Hello. Hi, Drupa. My name is Andehas. I work at Esther Collins Early Education Center, just like my colleague Richie, Richie. I'm the head teacher there, and it's a unified school district.
Oh, okay.
With early ed for 17 years. I've been with district 24.
Okay, David, it's really hard to hear you. So
question around, but like all of us previously mentioned,
Or is it,
how
I'm not sure who's talking there.
We can't hear you, David.
I don't think it's David actually.
For
Is it
our
David
field,
or-
for
I think it's a
professionalizing
little
our
delay.
field.
Sorry. Yeah, so we're waiting for it to catch up. But David, maybe you can just type a quick message in the chat box. And Mitzi, are you able to share with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, good. It was David then.
Okay.
The screen didn't match up, so I can't see your lips, so I was. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Uba. My name is Mitzi Willis, and I wanted to say I love your hair. And
I do it myself.
it's nice. Okay, I'm a teacher for Los Angeles Unified School District. I work in the Del Rio Pueblos housing project. There's a school sitting right in the center, and that's our school. I've been with LA Unified for 21 years, probably longer, but in different capacities. So I have seen a lot of things that I need to advocate for. I've built a large repertoire of what I need to fight for children. So I think I'm at that place now that I would like to start, but the part that is not as strong as I would like for it to be is the political side. The political aspect. So I'm learning more about the laws and policies and things that I can gather, put a whole piece together and then figure out how to get some stuff done. So thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to just flash this up really quick. Thank you, Mitzi, for sharing. And it looks like I can't. I'm going to stop share. I thought I would be dual talented here, read one and while pulling up the other, but it looks like I only have one option. So first I'm going to read, David said he worked at Esther Collins EEC for 17 years and worked at LAUSD for 24 years, just so you had that. So thank you, David, for posting that.
Excellent.
And then as a quick intro for Greg, he's an ECE Advocate for children, students, family, mentor for many. And he shared his website with us, and I'm going to copy and paste that. I'll also share it in a follow-up so that you have it, because he has amazing information there for advocates. And so without further ado, Greg Uba, you're on.
All right. Well, just so that you know, that blog is a blog that I use for my master's program. So it's expired because I've forgotten my email and password and all of that. But the information on it was all the work that I did working towards my master's program. So the stuff there should be pretty good. It's interesting because I'm hearing that all of y'all work for the man. State preschools and Head Starts and school districts. And that's interesting. I'm excited to see such a diverse group because that's exactly what we need in our leadership. So I would say that my advocacy journey started sort of by accident. I'm not very comfortable with large crowds. So I'd go to a conference and I'd walk by all those big fancy curriculum workshops and there'd be standing room only, people sitting against a wall. I can't go in there. I can't go in there. So I'd walk by like a big room with lots of empty chairs and I'd sneak in there and they'd be doing public policy. So I accidentally stumbled into it and I found out that it was interesting to me. It was something that I could be passionate about and something that I could make a difference in. I think the part for everyone to think about is what you're comfortable with. I was more of the rabble-rouser. And so I would be very outspoken, sometimes annoying, sometimes controversial. And I did it partly because it was my nature, but partly intentional, because sometimes when there was a meeting and there are a lot of people, sometimes the one that is the angriest or the most outspoken is saying something that 5 or 6 other people in the room also feel. And I think that if you are that person, and I don't know if you are or not, if you are that person, it's important for you to take an opportunity to get out your voice, be unafraid, and know that even if you might seem to be a little controversial, chances are there are other people in the room that want to say what you do. And chances are that at some point, someone that is a little bit tamer than you will be invited to speak. There are plenty of times I knew that people would say, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to that Greg guy, but I want to know, I kind of want to know more about what he's saying. So they would find one of my friends, one of my allies that would sit next to me, and it would be an invitation for that conversation to begin. I got babysat quite a few times by friends who would come sit next to me just in case I would get a little bit too excited, sit next to me to calm me down. But if that is your place, then be unafraid, be fearless, because other people need that voice. Maybe you're quiet. So knowing your personality, if you're quiet, you know, that's time to write a letter to the legislators, write a letter to the editor, post something in a Facebook group of educators. There are so many Facebook groups. Some of you might be younger and not using Facebook anymore, I know. But if you still do use Facebook, there are plenty of Facebook groups that you can post a thought, post an idea. The Men and Childcare Facebook group, MEN, and then AND, child and care, four different words. We have some excellent conversations. The group, actually, I kind of started it way back when I was trying to learn how to do Facebook. Started with me just inviting 5 or 6 friends. Now it has 800 and something members from around the world. Now that took, 15 years, something like that. But the conversations are quality conversations, the input's quality input. So if you're quiet and you can work behind the scenes, there's room for that too. I think the most important thing to do is find where your comfort level is to begin that journey. Don't stay there. Don't stay where you're comfortable. Change doesn't happen when you're comfortable. Change happens when you're uncomfortable. So I invite you to start where you're comfortable, but be willing to, at some point, become uncomfortable. So much of the leadership in the field is from the dominant culture, and then at this time, I know how important it is that we all feel that voices from all the different communities need to be heard. And by you being in this course and having this conversation about advocacy means that you are ready for undertaking that role. So I would say that the important thing to do tomorrow is to find out where you can start making that difference, baby steps, make that post, have that conversation with your friend, be like me and stand out on the street corner with a sign, but do something. I've written letters to the editor. I've written letters to legislators. I've gotten kicked out of meetings for being too excitable. So find out where you belong. When I started working, I worked in a suburban elementary school in Temple City. Some of you from LA, Temple City. I lasted there about a year. I was no good, 6th grade. Then I went to Jordan Downs. I worked at 102nd Street School, kindergarten and 5th grade. I was better there. And that helped me a little bit too. It helped me a little bit as far as that whole cultural humility thing. I remember going to school, going to work one day with my red sneakers, and a little girl came up to me and said, Mr. Uba, them shoes is nice, but them ain't our colors. And it was important to start learning how to be quiet and pay attention to other point of views and other perspectives and other, just other points of views, and be open-minded. And that's a big part of this. Working, I teased all y'all a little bit earlier for working for the man. And I think that that's something to examine also. How can you push the boundaries of where you work? School districts, Head Start, state preschools tend to be a little bit more conventional. You know, how can you push your colleagues and get them excited? Because, you know, when you start pushing the envelope in practice, when you start working on, you know, what you think best practice might look like, and taking a leadership role in that, going to work gets really exciting. And when your team becomes part of charting that journey, they can be excited about going to work too. I think that too often we get stuck in a rut, you know, working the same lesson plans, the same curriculum, the same age groups, and sometimes we just wind up doing a job. So think about what you really believe in and push the envelope. If you see something that you don't like, are you ready to challenge it? I'm not trying to get you guys in trouble, but if I can share, I worked at in Santa Cruz at a school district preschool, and I was just an assistant. Now, by that time, I had my bachelor's degree, and I had been an assistant director and lead teacher and all of that, but I just wanted to be with the children and have fun. So I took a job as an assistant, and the lead teachers were really cool. They kind of knew that I brought something to the table, and we pushed back on some of the direction that the school district was going. I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying jeopardize your job or anything like that, but think of what you can do. We had a classroom rabbit. The middle of our classroom was a giant block area. We let children build with blocks taller than they were. When the district bought a literacy program, we had some concerns about it. It was like, find the letter A, press on the letter A, good. You get a little balloon picture and you go on to the letter B. So when the rabbit ate the mouse cord, we just never turned in a technology repair request and went the rest of the school year without our computers. And then the children had to learn the old-fashioned way, hands-on learning, like you've been taught in your courses. So finding if you can push back, push against the boundaries of the box, make that box a little bit bigger, make appropriate practice a little bit larger. I'm not saying a different piece of the pie. I'm saying just make the pie bigger so that it's more inclusive of other views, other perspectives. I like to tell you, look around the classroom. You want to advocate, you can advocate for the children in your classroom just by looking around the classroom. When you're the best teacher you are, when you're in the zone, when your lessons really clicking, when you're excited about teaching, what children are around you? Is it always the same children? What children aren't getting you when you're the best teacher, and how can you get to them? I worked with a webinar with Bright Horizons, and I asked the directors on the conference call, what part of the curriculum are you proudest of as a director? Which part of your program, your curriculum is the strongest? And then I asked them, where do you feel like the teachers are the best? Where are your teachers are proudest of? And then I asked, you know, where do you think the boys are most excited and engaged? And there was a large disconnect. I've become an advocate for making learning environments better for boys, just by making the block area the center, doing more science, letting things get a little bit more risky, a little bit louder, a little rough and tumble play. Because I want boys to know as early as preschool that school's a place that they belong. And you know, sometimes that the little girls get there and they got their little Ariel shirt or their little Disney princess shirt, and they might not know any other girl in the classroom, but there's another girl with a princess shirt, and there's another girl that's a Disney fan, and pretty soon, you know, they look in the dramatic play area, has dolls, and oh, I get it. I know what to do here. I know what to do when I'm in preschool. I'm gonna be okay here. And you get the little boy and he's running around. Oh, we don't run inside. he's getting a little rough with the other boy. We don't keep our hands, gentle hands, gentle hands. In the first week, sometimes the little boys are looking at, well, what am I doing here? I can't do anything I'm supposed to do. And so looking at the children, advocating for them is the first place any of us needs to advocate. Which child are you not reaching? Which child are you not giving your best? Which child is not getting from your classroom joy and a desire to come the next day and a desire to learn? It's a hard thing because it makes us look at our own weaknesses. And that's why teaching teams are important. I know that I have my biases. I know that there are children that look for me. So it's important that when I'm meeting with a team that we have that conversation. Does every child here have their teacher? Does every child here have that someone? I'm not, and I don't want to get anyone in trouble again. I'm not a big fan of primary caregiving because so many times that means that teachers are putting children in groups and assigning children to a group. I kind of want the children to pick their teacher. Because somewhere in the classroom, if you have a diverse enough teaching staff, that child can find someone. I remember patting backs at nap time, and this little girl's looking at me and she says, Miss Shana's my favorite teacher. Yeah, that's not me, but don't hurt my feelings. But she went and she pointed to every child on their cot and told me who every child's favorite teacher was. And my feelings were not hurt that I wasn't the favorite teacher of every child. I was grateful that she could identify that every child had someone that was their go-to person. So advocacy begins in your own classroom first. I mean, are they getting enough playtime? Are your transitions smooth enough? Are the languages from their home being respected? Are their family forms being respected? Do you have books, if you have same gender families, 2 moms, 2 dads, are those books there? What do you do in the classroom that makes sure that every child is seeing themselves reflected in the classroom? You can go to the store and buy all those posters about diversity. But sometimes it's better just to have the children draw a picture of themselves, bring a picture from home of their family and stick it on the wall so that when they're not feeling good, they can go to that wall and say, that's my mom, that's my dad. And it's not just a pretty picture from, Lakeshore or Kaplan or ABC, all you guys. It's not a pretty polished commercial thing, but it's a photograph that means something really important to them. So first place advocacy begins is in your classroom. Politically, like transitional kindergarten, thinking about the unintended consequences. Not all money is good money. Now, again, I'm hearing that lots of you work for the districts and Head Starts and state preschool. Most of I've worked for state preschool and I've worked for Head Start and I've worked for private preschool. I've worked for family child care. Infants, toddlers, I work with teenagers on probation at a family resource center. It's important to me that we maintain a diverse delivery system. And a study by Marcy Whitebook on the California child care workforce indicated that as formal education became a requirement, as we came to think about our job as being really important and needing education and getting those bachelor's degrees, Marcy Whitebook was finding that the diversity, linguistic and cultural diversity of the workforce is decreased as formal education requirements are increased. That's why I'm so glad that your class is so diverse, because that's critical. If we are going to demand higher education for our teachers, we also have to demand that access to that higher education is available for people of color, communities of color, so that children, when they walk into the classroom in a Head Start, when they walk into the classroom and it's a state preschool, that they can see and hear themselves. They can feel their culture represented in the classroom. Because without that, we can't say that we're high quality. If we don't reflect the communities we serve, we can't declare that we're a high quality program just because we have fancy degrees. It's part of that cultural humility to know when you don't understand something, to know when you don't know that experience, know that truth, have that history, and to be willing to say, I can't say I understand, but you can help me be respectful. You can help me be humble. You can help me be responsible. You can help me do better. And so having all of you in this classroom I was incredibly excited to see the diversity. You know, and there's a guy here. I'm thrilled about that. If I don't know, maybe take a break and see if that inspired any questions now from the group.
Yeah, let's just take a moment and if you have, let's have you ask questions. If there's something that Greg shared that caused you to think of a question, or maybe caused you to think of a story of your own advocacy in the classroom or politically. Tara, it looks like you have a question. We're going to start with you.
Yes. Mr. Uba, can you tell us a little bit about the area that you work in now? How do you advocate for children, and what capacity do you work now?
Okay, right now, again, I'm furloughed right now, actually. The coronavirus really knocked down our student enrollment population, and so I'm waiting till the children come back before I go back to work. Before that, I was at a state preschool in the Oak Park part of California, which was historically a low-income community that had some gang issues and poverty issues, but was rapidly gentrifying. So there are all those issues that come along with that. I think part of my advocacy there was advocating for a curriculum that was child-driven. Got a lot of flack from the board of directors, you know, asking me to pick a curriculum, you know, but we got to buy one. And I was more concerned with guaranteeing that the work was generated by the children, that their interests move the curriculum. And so we were very particular about, you know, when we had our team meetings, when we hired people, we had people that were really open-minded to a sort of progressive, humanistic point of view. We used observation to activity, OTA. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but it's an activity planning that is not Monday to Friday. It's an activity plan that follows the children. So instead of the teachers telling the children what they're going to learn, the teachers are watching what the children are doing and develop a plan to support that. So we saw the children in the garden. They're putting the snails in their pocket and the bugs in their pocket, the caterpillars. And so our lead teacher, an excellent teacher, Mr. Ken, he brought in a small aquarium, and we brought the snails inside, took care of the snails. We grew silkworms and took care of the silkworms. When we brought the snails in, we had the snails, he brought in some acrylic panels so the snails could walk on acrylic, and we put mirrors underneath so that the children could see from underneath a reflection of how the snail moved. And by following what the children's interests are, you can pretty much guarantee that a majority of them will engage in the curriculum. Rather than us trying to decide, you know, hey, this is September, and we're going to learn about family, and so we're going to get the people, and we're going to color the people. That's a harder road to go. So I think advocacy for the children begins with listening to them. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciated that question.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Tara. Did you have any additional questions, or did you feel that he answered your question?
I just wanted to know, for when you said you're on furlough from family daycare, is that your family daycare? Are you working with friends? Are you working with family? I was just a little interested of how they maneuver during this time.
Okay, so here's the story. Remember the preschool, state preschool I was working with in Oak Park, progressive, child-driven. I had a difference in vision. The board wanted it to become more conventional, and I didn't believe in it, so I left. So I just went home one day. I said, "Thank you, I can't do this," and I went home one day. I'm a member of the Men and Child Care Committee of the Sacramento Valley chapter of CAAEYC. And so I was at a board meeting, and our family child care chair board member said, "Hey, she needed someone to help with the RDPs." I said, I could help you out. And that's how I wound up in licensed family child care. It started out just helping another board member who needed to work on the RDPs for the quality initiative in the county.
Okay, thank you.
How exciting. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, Tara. Does anybody else have any questions for Greg? Lydia, go ahead.
Okay, look, I can talk about one of the things that
Lydia, hang on just a second, Greg. Lydia had a question. Go ahead, Lydia. Ask Greg a question before he resumes.
Okay, I'm sorry. What is your mission of your daycare? What is the vision or your mission of your daycare that you work for?
Okay, let me start with the mission of the state preschool I worked at before, because it got really close to something that I was really happy with. We were working hard to provide something that was good for the whole child. Again, it was based upon following the lead of the children. And I don't remember word for word the mission and vision, but it was whole child, so that the meals, while they were provided by the Sacramento Unified School District, they were culturally diverse. So we had diverse meals. When we made our own, sometimes we made our own stuff. We started off as a educational nutrition project, and we would have a salad bar, something like that. So we were very good at becoming child-driven. We had a school garden. We had the snails, the silkworms. We had chickens. We had a rabbit. And the children would get there in the morning, and they'd run out to see if any eggs were in the garden. So I would say that my vision is one to provide an experience for the children that is driven by them, where the learning is something that they care about and they have a hand in creating and designing, and where the teachers are skilled at following the child's lead and skilled enough to bring in the resources that support those children's interests. Whether it's bringing in chicks for them to raise from babies, or bringing in we had a petting zoo come in. So following the children's lead.
I just wanted to say, first of all, Lydia, did he answer your question? Yes? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say, we always learn something from every conversation and every interaction. And I didn't really think of all the times I've had conversations with students or families about being culturally diverse. I really never thought about looking at the nutrition and the food as culturally diverse. So thank you for that. I mean, yes, we do. We do look at those things, but I never, in all of the student learning outcomes and all of the outlines, I never ever thought about that area. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, I can piggyback on that a little, if it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a program that I was hanging out with, Community Development Center, Inc., Carson, Long Beach, Wilmington. And they had a very high Pacific Island, Samoan population of students. So they brought their kitchen staff, all Pacific Islanders. so that they could prepare meals that were culturally, that reflected the cultures of the families. So that part of it's wonderful.
That is very interesting. I wanted to ask you just really quick about the state preschool that you left. Looks like my computer's running out of battery. You said that you were close to getting that to be child-led, whole child, and interest-based learning, which is fabulous. But do you think that they just weren't ready to use that for a curriculum, or?
Well, because we were state preschool, the consultants from CDE would come in, and the board would come in, and we would have charts on the wall, where children would graph something, where we'd ask questions and yes and no, and we would have a cooking project, and they would say how many cups of this and how many scoops of that, and we would have that on the wall. And the consultants from CDE and the board would come in and they say, "Where's your math?" And it's right there. It's right there, and they couldn't see it.
Oh no!
And so, depending on how savvy your board is, or your consultant with the school district or the Department of Education, sometimes they start pushing you into a box because they can't see what it is you're trying to do and how that reflects the learning domains that the children need to engage with.
How many of you have the same challenge where emergent curriculum is not an well understood concept? Do any of you struggle with this, advocating for this in your own schools? Yes, no?
We don't use that curriculum, but what I was gonna ask Mr. Uba was if he is more towards like high school curriculum, because I know from what he's talking about, like, children learning through their pace and kind of going on their own. And that's the way I think I started in Head Start 20 years ago. Kids, they learned their way, not our way. Our curriculum was high school, and it allowed us to let them play and let them be and learn through play. Whereas now the curriculums that they have now, they're so, they're so difficult to follow. So if we have a hard time as teachers, I can only imagine, the little ones, right? That
Yep.
Are trying to follow our lessons now that are just not as good as they were in the past, I think.
And that's the challenge. How much can you push back? How much can you get your vision back when you have those team meetings, when you talk with your director, when you talk with your site supervisors, when you talk with the district leadership that's purchasing the curriculum for you? I don't know, are you still, if you're using DLM Express or something like that, some of those curriculums aren't that good. And sorry, LA Unified, this was long ago, so I'm not saying you're like that now, but I remember going to an LA Unified television program once, and the daily schedule for a 3.5-hour day was 2 pages. And it's like, how many transitions do you need? That was hurting my feelings. When we got close to what we wanted, we had inside outside. Children could go in, children could go out. We had teachers outside and teachers inside all day long. And if we had to separate some children that were having an issue, we could separate them.
I have a question for you.
Okay, Anna, go ahead.
Are you done? Anna, you had a question?
Oh, sorry.
Who, when me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, where as you're speaking, and what you were saying earlier in regards to how we start with advocating in the class, because we always think about being an advocate, like being outside, like you said, in the streets or in board meetings, and yeah, that is the big part of being seen by others. But advocating for an individual that can't speak for themselves, that's when you really know you got the base of what it is. And I work with a high school program. So even that, the structure of we have a daily schedule, and the teachers, and some teachers might still be old school and might want like to listen and stand in line, and this is what it is. But when you actually advocate for the needs, or like me, when I walk into classroom, I'm like, no, but we need to try. That small thing, you just think you're doing the right thing, but that is advocating for the child. So I think it's important for us to keep that in the forefront, that that's where we begin. And the other stuff, when we go out there in public, that's for us to advocate as a whole and to be seen. But we don't do the small part in the classroom, then it's, I think that's where we fail.
When you believe what you're doing in the classroom, when you really believe it and your team really believes it, then it's easy to go outside. If you don't believe what you're doing in the classroom, it's hard to go outside, because it's hard to go advocate for something that you don't believe in. So knowing that you're doing the best you can for the children, once you can do that, it's easy to go out. Thank you, though.
Well, I had a question for you.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
My question is, with this new digital era, how do you see things proceeding with this new digital era when you go back to work?
This is really hurting my feelings. I have to tell you, really, I don't know if I could go back to a job that is overly digital. The American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend screen time for young children. NAEYC has already said that they don't support excessive amounts of screen time for children. This is we're looking at the first generation now becoming adults that has a shorter life expectancy than the generation before them, because of the sedentary lifestyle that they've led and the consumer-driven lifestyle that they've led. I'm hearing these strange rumors, about doing away with family-style eating and limiting the number of children in the dramatic play area. Some of those are so horrifying to me and so destructive to me, I wouldn't even know if I could do it. I don't know if I could go into a learning environment where I was telling 3-year-olds only 2 children allowed in the dramatic play area and stay away from each other. I don't know if I could do that. It's not healthy. So I think that there's a lot that needs to be figured out. And I think that it's important for us as early educators to know where we stand, to know what we're comfortable with, so that we're not engaged in promoting a practice that's not healthy. I know we all want our jobs and we all need our jobs, and we've worked so hard to get to where we are that we can't walk away from it necessarily. But knowing what you can give up and knowing what you can't give up when you enter that classroom is going to be important. When NAEYC kind of backslid on their position on technology, because NAEYC's original paper on technology was very much taking a stand against it. But pressure from the digital age kind of forced them to say, okay, well, technology where it's appropriate and that, So my friends and I were part of an AEYC affiliate. When I say AEYC, I'm hoping everyone knows what I mean, the professional association that we belong to, the Association for the Education of Young Children. The one I was affiliated with in Los Angeles South Bay was called Beach Cities, and we were the radicals. And so when NAEYC came out with that, we wrote up a position statement on mud, on the value of mud. And that's going to be one of the things that your professor will share with you. And we sent that out into the world, and we sent that to NAEYC because we wanted it to be understood that the simplest, most basic things like sand, and I know a place that don't even have sand anymore. Don't tell me that I don't want to hear Basically, sand and mud and water are no longer available. And when you start taking sand and water and mud out of the learning environment, you've taken a step away from what childhood used to mean to all of us.
And it's so hard, I think, Mr. Uba. I have an 8-year-old here at home who actually wrote a letter about it, about how she hates distance learning, about how she misses her friends. And I mean, I was so sad for her. She's 8 years old, and I was so sad for her to read that letter. And it's such,
yes.
I think, challenging time for all of us and educators as well. And, you know, it's gonna be interesting to see what the big people have planned, the big people that have never been in a classroom with children, who don't know, like you said, that you can't keep 4-year-olds away from each other. You can't have, you know, 4-year-olds wearing a mask because they're not going to keep it on.
No.
So it's going to be very interesting to see what they think is appropriate for the young children. You know, I'm very curious to see that, because it's not going to work. It's not. And I think we know that because we've been in classrooms with children for many, many years, and we know that that what they have planned is not going to work.
But just
so from an advocacy perspective, it's important now for all of you, for all of us, to know what we can stand for, to know what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay.
Yeah, but you mentioned, like, what is our purpose with children is hands-on. And now we're sitting them in front of the laptop to go watch a Zoom class for 30 minutes when Ecker's class limits children 5 minutes per day, or, you know, and it's like, well, now you're asking them to do completely the opposite.
Yes.
Interactions, they learn through interactions with peer. Everything we do, the DRDP's on, everything we do, Ecker's class, all of it is out the window right now.
Yep.
So just like you, I don't know how for our field this can actually work. We have a council meeting for our district of the city of Lenox on Friday, and how people want to go back, or parents or the community, to school. And I'm like, the first thing that I wanted to do was jump. I'm like, no, but it's like, I want to see point. I want to be able to articulate the reasons why, and, you know, stand there or hop on the Zoom and say, no, we have to, you know, and break it down. But that's where we have to really be knowledgeable, I guess, and really know what we need to say that will hit those points.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure is that advocacy is going to, I mean, this is such a timely class, because as we move forward, you will all definitely need to know where we have an opinion about what does that look like, and you'll need to advocate for children to be able to learn in a way that's developmentally appropriate. It's going to be difficult, and so you being deeply rooted in your understanding of how children learn is going to be more important than ever. So you know, I'm so glad that you're all here, and I'm so thankful that Greg is here to share with us his ideas about, you know, hearing so strongly about that he can only go to a certain point. I mean, and I think we're all going to deal with that. How far are we willing to go when we are sacrificing what children need? So it's going to be interesting. And I look forward to staying in touch and hearing stories from you of how you are putting your advocacy into practice. So, and as it already was said, you're all advocates. You're all advocating now, but now we're just making the terminology more familiar, and we're looking at what is the next step. As Anna said, you know, we have to do that in the classroom. What does it look like outside the classroom? And, you know, and as Greg said, we can't be still. We have to take next steps. If we're still and we're comfortable, we're not making progress. We're not advocating. If I said that correctly, Greg. So, all right. So I just want to check in with everybody. We are at almost 7 o'clock, and Greg has been so gracious with his time and sharing. Is there any questions some of you may be using this time to collect information for your assignment, for your interviewing of an advocate. So is there any questions that you would like to ask for that assignment, or are there any more questions about anything we've shared so far?
I have a question for Mr. Uba.
Okay, go ahead, Missy.
Okay, Mr. Uba, you are on the far left about fighting for children, and then we work in a system that's far right. Either, I'm not saying it in terms of political, but I'm just using that as the extremes. Okay, and so how do you, as a teacher who, like for me personally, I don't care what's going on. I try to stay in the middle and grab the best from both sides so I can create something where children can survive. If that's like, just like where we are now, I have to find a piece where they can survive through this, and I have to be the guide for that. So how do you balance, how is it that you balance that?
You're probably a lot wiser than I am. I've been bounced from a few jobs for being a little too vocal. But knowing what you are able to do where you are, if you're comfortable where you are, knowing what you can do, how far you can push, I would say push as far as you're comfortable. Actually, I would say push further than you're uncomfortable, because once you're uncomfortable, you know that you took a risk. As long as you're comfortable, you haven't taken a risk. So I'm not trying to get anyone fired. Push to the point where you're just beginning to feel uncomfortable, and maybe that's how you move the needle. You know, that's how you move things.
Mitzi, I want to add that that I too, you know, have been. This is, I think, a question for all of us, because we all want to be making progress. We all want to advocate. We all want to see change, and but we also, depending upon our roles, we want to keep that balance. So I think we need to get really good at framing questions, because when we get really good at framing questions, we can bring people along with us. We can ask questions, we can educate, and we can, if the people come to their own, and I say people as those you're balancing, if you can ask those right questions, you can help people come to their own conclusion, and they will start to move toward the area you're trying to move them toward.
Yeah, Ms. Laker, that's been my experience for probably 15 of the 20 years that I've been teaching, is that I've worked for LA Unified, and I've been through DLM, and I've been to creative curriculum, and I was always trying to balance it where I could stay with my children, give them the best experiences along with all these, and within these parameters, I'll say it that way. So what I did was I learned to be able to explain it, like you said, like when they would come in and they would say, well, where's your math? And I would be able to connect it to their expectation, but what I know is this. And it wasn't always easy. It was like, I would push, and sometimes I find myself way on the other side where I'm against, you know, I'm fighting, and, you know, it's just like, I don't even know what to call it. It's just like being in the middle of a storm and trying to carry these children with me and not let them fall up, you know, be harmed by it. So that's what I'm saying about the advocacy and the balance of it, and how do I efficiently do that?
Well, I want to also say that the onus is on us to get more educated and know about how all these tools work, so that we can then bring them back and tie them into what we know is best for children. So the more you know and are able to connect the DRDPs and the learning foundations and all of these pieces into what children do, or that we know that children do to learn best, then the easier it is for us to make those connections and explain them to others. And the better we get at it, the easier I think it becomes.
It's pretty evident that most of you are very passionate about what you're doing. And I think that that's critical, because you're one of the people we forget when we're talking about advocating for. Sometimes you're advocating for your team. Those of you that are site supervisors or lead teachers. And sometimes you're not just carrying the children with you, but you're carrying the team with you. When I've had a few jobs where I was an assistant on a salary scale, but working with a team that was very horizontal, that was very democratic. And I remember saying, you know, I don't want to do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday thing. And can we try this one thing? And they resisted for like a year and a half. And then the lead teacher said, okay, Mr. Gregg, we'll try it your way. We'll try it your way for the second half of this year and see what happens. When we did the DRDPs, they were able to see that using a child-driven approach resulted in positive outcomes on the DRDPs. And when they were able to see that it worked, that hands-on learning worked, that child-directed learning worked, that maybe spending less time on the days of the week and the calendar and the weather and more time on things that are the most important to the children, when the teaching team saw that it worked, then they were able to open up. And that's when we were really able to build a more progressive vision. I know it's hard because sometimes you're taking along a team and a district that doesn't understand. So taking the team with you is an important part of your advocacy too.
Yeah, good, very good. Thank you, Greg. Anybody else have any questions for Greg? No?
I thought I saw Mia a couple times wanting to talk.
Mia or Raquel or Mia, did you want to take the mic?
Just real quick, Mr. Uba, any other associations that you recommend that we look at? Like, I mean, I know CAAEYC, right? That's the one we all know about, but any other like associations that you would recommend?
There's one, Californians for Quality Early Learning, CQEL. They tend to be more driven in the leadership role. So it's going to be more licensing stuff and more administrative things. So those of you that are in administration, that might be something to look at. Sometimes the best thing to do is find that group on Facebook that is working for you. CAAEYC, there's a leadership and diversity group. There's LGBTQ group. There's men in childcare group. There's men in childcare New England. There's a Manny group for male nannies. So there's a group, Badass Teachers. Looking and finding the group out there that's having a conversation that matches your values, because then when you put something out there, you might get some ideas from the other people in the group on that will support you. So finding like-minded people. Sometimes that's better than, sometimes what you get human to human is better than what you're going to get. Sorry, CAAEYC, but I'm a little bit mad at you right now. Sometimes talking to people that share your vision is going to be more beneficial.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Raquel. Mia, did you have a question? Okay. Jacqueline, any questions?
I guess since you were talking about assessments, then how do you feel about using the DRDPs? Do you think there's like a better tool to assess how kids are developing in the classroom, or like to not use it at all?
You know what Maria Montessori said, the documentation is a child itself. So that's a paraphrase, I'm sorry. The DRDP is a wonderful tool. It lets you know that you're hitting things. It lets you know, I have all this information on Sally's social emotional learning, but I don't have anything on her science knowledge. I don't have anything on her in the area of her motor skills. I'm only paying attention to Juan's motor skills, and I'm not paying any attention to his literacy development. It catches you where you're missing the children. So from that point of view, it's valuable. But that's only if you check in on it regularly through the year. If the minute it becomes oppressive, the minute you're thinking more about the DRDP than you are about the child, then it's a waste of energy. And I think that's what it got so burdensome, what, 59 measures at one point? For Head Start's doing it 3 times a year. If you Head Start, state preschool blend, that's ridiculous. So.
Yeah, and it's true because like a lot of teachers, they're like always stressed out when it comes to that point, like where it's due. It's like, oh, I don't have all the measures. What am I gonna do? Like, it's just like, I have to get it done. So I have to do whatever to get it finished on time.
I just wanted to add, Jacqueline, really quick that that I think is part of that. If we're planning with that in mind, if we know that, the better we know that, the better when we plan our curriculum or when we plan our activities, I like to call them activities instead of curriculum, but we're planning, we're thinking, oh, I know that by doing this, these measures are gonna be included, or I can look at these measures. And we're always carrying that notepad or that sticky pad that we're jotting things down, because we need to plan with the end in mind. I'm sure you've heard many times. So the better we know that, the easier our job to check those boxes comes, and we don't have to think of it later on and then plan something for that, which is really not best for the child.
And this is where my anti-technology thing was actually helpful. We bought loads of mailing labels. And there's another reason I don't particularly care for primary caregiving. I want all the teachers to pay attention to all the children, because, you know, I'm like the outside teacher. You know, I'm standing in the garden half of the day, and I'm going to see things that might not be my primary child. I need to write it down. So we would have clipboards and mailing labels, and you would just write down, you know, date it, child's name, write down a quick anecdote. And then when you pull out the DRDP tools, you just slap them in. That worked for me. Partly because I'm low tech, but partly because I wanted to be sure that we saw all the children and everyone could just grab a clipboard if they saw something important happen.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Anybody else? No? All right. Well, thank you so very much. Thank you, Greg, for sharing. It was such a privilege to have you join us, and I'm sure I'll be inviting you to join future classes to share, because it really gets us focused on some of the really important things. It's not just a topic, but how do we connect this to what we're doing now, and then how do we take it to that next level? So
yeah, and remember, find what you're comfortable with. If you're angry enough like me and you want to go to the master planning, if you want to go to the local planning committee, LA County local planning committee, if you want to hang out with the focus groups that are looking at an idea, do that. If you want to go to public comment, if you want to visit your legislator and say something to them that this is not right, if you're able to do any of that, do it. But you know, it all starts with knowing what you want to do for the individual children in your classroom. And once you have a good feeling for what you want to do for your children, you'll be able to grow from there.
All right, very good. And you got a thumbs up from Anna too.
Hey, if anyone has a question that they think of later, you can just have them email me and I'll be happy to respond.
All right, absolutely. I will be sure. And Greg has shared some materials that I'm going to pass on to you as well. So with that being said, thank you so very much, Greg. I just want to spend a few minutes. You can stay on with us as long as you like.
Oh, I'd love to.
I wanted to just ask if there's any questions about any of the assignments. I was able to get through all of your professional presentations, so thank you. Make sure that you take a look at the feedback on those. If there are any questions about the week 3 interview assignment, maybe some of you are using our guest speaker, Greg, or the past guest speaker, or outside if you found something on your own. I just want to make sure you feel well supported and able to complete those assignments. So I'm going to just open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions? Okay, Anna?
For the discussion board, we were already supposed to have posted our presentation, correct?
So you're going to post a link to your presentation and the questions. And so if you didn't, it's no big deal. If you didn't Some of you may have thought about just keeping them in the presentation, which is a good reason for your peers to open it. But I just asked if you did not post your questions for your peers to answer, to post them there. So just to make it easier. And some of you already did. So if you didn't, if you'll just go back in and post those questions there that your peers should answer, that'll just make things run more smoothly. So, okay.
By when are you allowing us to respond to the peers? We have until Saturday.
Oh, gotcha. Well, this week's a little weird. I mean, it's kind of a weird, it's not like it's a little bit different. And so what I did, because I knew we weren't going to have a discussion about the discussion board questions, it was going to be more of a listening to our guest speaker. I said, just post your original, whatever you're supposed to post, and then also respond to one peer so that you give some support to your peer, you know, in terms of
representation. Okay.
That makes sense. So if you want to answer more peers to support everybody, that's fine too. But I'm not going to be, I just want to make sure that you're taking it serious and you're offering support for one another. All of the presentations were outstanding, and I just want to thank you for working so hard. I know that's nothing short of a miracle for many that are maybe not feeling so technologically advanced, but you did it. And I know that moving forward, it's just going to get easier for you. So thank you for that. And I just want you to know, I'm not sitting up behind the computer being critical. I'm sitting behind the computer saying, they did it. I'm so proud of them. And I know that they're just going to be a better advocate moving forward to be able to use this technology to reach families and also just to network with your colleagues. So good for you. I'm really happy about that.
And I think it's true what you said, Professor O. It couldn't have come at a better time. I mean, we're living in some times that are, wow. So this class couldn't have come in a better time.
I know. For you and for me, I feel, even though I'm in a different role, I can't tell you how thankful I am. And I've had a lifetime of advocacy, working with young children, advocating in the school system for my kids that have learning differences. And I've always try to advocate and share skills is anywhere I go. I've got a lot of different groups on Facebook, as Greg mentioned. And, you know, I try to give a little bit to everything. It can be overwhelming when you get spread thin, but that is what I live for. And that's my healing as well. As many of you maybe have had challenging experiences with your children in the classroom, or maybe yourself. But this is the way we heal, is we educate and we roll it forward. And it just, I mean, to me, it's so healing. It just makes me so excited to be able to change lives and help people get their voice so that they can, you know, advocate for children and families as well. So